Thanks for joining me for this lesson on Microsoft Azure Virtual Machines. And we are going to have a chat about the purpose of the virtual machine and key attributes of the virtual machines. And also we are going to talk in the upcoming lessons about the other components such as the storage, performance, and virtual machine size and other advanced topics in the upcoming lectures. But within this lecture, we're going to just focus how to create a simple virtual machine and what are the components that are involved and what are key things that to be considered when you are trying to create a new virtual machine. And traditionally, if you don't know what exactly the virtual machines, how they started, traditionally we used to build actually on-premises environment. What we used to do is we used to buy all the physical servers for our infrastructure along with their storage and their CPU power and the cabling to be done, all the networking components, and then we used to use those servers for each server meant for one or two different purposes. For example, it can be worked for a file server, one of them maybe for the database, or one of them for just for the application servers. So what used to happen is you cannot use the off-peak uses of the servers. Let's say you might have just the utilization on a peak hours, but what about off peak hours usage? So you're not going to use that. So then other softwares come up, for example VMware and Microsoft Hyper-V, all that virtualization softwares come up into the market, and they started grouping of your physical servers that might be actually joined a similar kind of in a cluster, and then on top of that one or two, three servers, when they merged as a cluster, you used to deploy more than 10-15 machines based on the CPU and the RAM and the storage that is actually clubbed as one. So you might be using definitely all that peak hours and off peak hours utilization also, all of these three servers. So you used to save a lot of costs, and these things are very popular. Of course, like a lot of things, it's actually extended similar technology to the cloud, and now we call it as a virtual machines within the Microsoft Azure. So what happens is you will have the virtual machine. So virtual machines will fall into infrastructure as a service. I'm pretty sure that you have already know about the basics like infrastructure as a service, and platform as a service, and all other key cloud types or the cloud offerings that you might already know it. And we are going to actually focus within this lecture more about how the virtual machines are created, and it can be created and how best we can actually utilize them. And just to jump into the demonstration after the small introduction. So if you are trying to create anything within the Microsoft Azure, you're going to create a resource group. So what exactly resource group? That's a container. Basically, resource group is a container that will hold all the related resources. When I say resource, it could be your web application or maybe virtual machine or maybe a storage. All that are part of your resource. So it's like a top folder, and you have all these subfolders like you have on your computer. Similar thing, but in Azure world, it's a resource group. So a group of different resources will be placed in there. So that's a container kind of thing. It will hold all the related resources within the Microsoft Azure solutions, and these resources can be included all the resources of your solution. And if you delete this resource group, all the solutions within that resource group container gets deleted. So it's another way you can actually manage your lifecycle of the same resources within that resource group. So it's easy for deployment, updating and deleting. So that's what you're going to use. And if you haven't gone through the lecture on resource groups, please do check out that lecture, but this is gonna focus on Azure Virtual Machine. So let's take that you have a resource group and you want to actually create a virtual machine. When we create a virtual machine, we will have a different key components that are part of creation of this virtual machine within that resource group. So let's say the first thing first, if we allocate where actually we are going to create and what is the virtual machine name. So if, let's say we wanted to define this virtual machine name as VM01 example. So the next thing is the region. Region is very important for data sovereignty and compliance perspective, uh, because that is a key where your virtual machine should be reside. So you need to choose a region. So regions are different regions you have within Microsoft world, like East US or South Asia, or maybe within your country there should be some kind of data center that is called a nearest one for you, and we call that as the regions. So within this, we can actually create maybe in the East US region, and if at all we want, we can choose even West US, or maybe Singapore or Australia, or different regions we can choose it. And the second part would be the here the size. So what exactly the size defines is the virtual machines will have a different sizes, which we are going to talk in the next upcoming lectures. But for now, just to understand, the size will determine your CPU and memory and network performance and so on. So the size is, let's say you are actually targeting for a general purpose, then you can go for general purpose machine type. Or if you're focused on memory hunger applications gonna install on this virtual machine, then you are focused on memory optimized, or maybe GPU based or disk performance based. All that different type of sizes and different type of virtual machines can be used. And just to give you a big note, that not all type of your virtual machine sizes are available in every region. Let's say you have some virtual machine in East US, you might not have the same thing maybe in Singapore data center or Singapore region. So it all depends because of the region changes. So you should be sure that what kind of virtual machine you are trying to create, and is that really available on that specific region. And other things would be the image. When we talk about the image, there are Microsoft default images are also available. Let's say you want to install maybe a Windows machine within this. So it comes with a preloaded operating system for you. So all you have to do is you have to log into the machine. When you're creating, it's going to ask you to enter the user ID and the password. With that user ID and the password, it's going to actually create a computer for you as a virtual machine. So it can be a Linux or maybe a Windows machine, and different images which are coming from Microsoft distributed. So there are different distributors like third party people who are gonna create or could be made their own images. Let's say that image is most hardened for the server configuration, and it is available maybe from the Red Hat or maybe from a third-party vendor. So all that are available, and you can choose that. For of course, for everything it's going to cost the pricing also. So let's have a look on how the components of this virtual machine also looks like. Let's say when you're trying to create any of the virtual machine, it should have definitely a network interface, because that network interface will have a private IP address as well as a public IP. And on top of this virtual machine, you're going to actually have some kind of firewall called NSG, network security group. So where you are going to define a different port should be only open for available for the external users. Let's say from the cloud, a public cloud, from your machine, you're gonna allow 3389 port. So that configuration will be done on the network security group, and that's called NSG. And we're going to discuss these things in the networking section. But just to give you an idea, this virtual machine have a different components altogether, right? So that's what we talked in the beginning of this lecture, and one of the component would be definitely network, and other component would be the storage. So we have a network interface card, that's nothing but a NIC, and it's storage. So storage can have a multiple type of storages, like you might have a SATA storage, or you might have a premium storage with SSD, or a hybrid kind of storage, and you can have more than one disks also, and that can be attached to the disk. So all these components you have. So this is all called for the component side for the virtual machine. And let's jump into the Azure portal and see how to create these virtual machines. Let's jump into the Azure portal, and you see here within this, if I start creating any of the virtual machines as a first step. So if I just click on that, it's gonna actually show any of the virtual machines if at all I have. So first thing first, if I try to create a virtual machine, either I should go from here to the virtual machines and then click on add. So this is gonna prompt me to create a virtual machine, and this is where I'm going to choose my subscription. As we talked about the resource group, a grouping of different components, all that resources will be within this resource group. And you see here resource group will now contain post to the creation. You have your NSGs, network card and storage, all that will be part of the specific resource group. So let's create as a first resource group. In this case, I'm just gonna say as the demo for VMs. That's what I'm gonna give here, and simply I can give here this name, and that's gonna create a resource group. And within this, I'm going to create a virtual machine. So the virtual machine name, as we talked earlier, VM01, let's say. And the next step is a region. This is where we can choose multiple regions. So, and you see here, Microsoft also recommends these regions because based on the Azure products, long-term capacity growth are available here. Apart from that, you can actually choose other regions also. Let's say I want this virtual machine to be provisioned in maybe Canada East, or maybe in Europe, UK West. So it all depends on my requirement where I have to provision. And you see here as UK West or maybe Europe West, and if the images are available, the standard images, it will show. Otherwise, it's gonna say that hey, you have to select another type of image because this is a size. The sizes depends on actually the virtual CPUs and the memory limit. So this specific size is not available in this maybe Europe, UK West, or maybe some other region. So if at all I choose the East US, so this specific size is available and I can choose that. So we talked about the regions as part of the PPT, and also now we are going to talk about availability options. So we're going to talk on this in the upcoming lectures, where we're going to talk for multi-region, multi-zone, and multiple virtual machines becomes as a set. That's called a scale set, all that in the upcoming lecture. But for now, for the creation of the virtual machine, you can choose the image. Let's see what kind of operating system you want to choose. Here I can choose here the virtual machine type would be maybe a CentOS or Windows Server or Ubuntu Server or Oracle Linux or Debian 10. So all that different virtual machine images can be loaded to this specific virtual machine called VM01. So in my case, I'm just choosing maybe a 2019 data center generation 1. That means you would actually have even generation 2 also you might have. So I'm just choosing the generation 1, or if you want to browse any public and private images, as we talked earlier, let's say Ubuntu server was created by a third-party company, and best value for the scale out, you can choose that. It's gonna actually you're gonna buy those things even for the Barracuda cloud generation, all the different images like Citrix, ADC, different Red Hat Enterprise, all that. If they are not available from your Microsoft public images, you can actually browse and buy from third-party also images. And coming to the spot registration, this is where it's going to actually used unused Azure capacity. So you're getting actually a discount instead of a coupons. You're actually, when you choose for Azure spot instance, you're going to actually buy for the reduced price. And coming back to the sizes, as we talked a little bit on this earlier already when we are trying to browse for the region. So not all the sizes are available in each and every region. That's what we talked in the PPT, and you can choose here different sizes, and also you can click on, when you click on a size, it is going to actually give you a different sizes. You see here there are A, K, K and A series, or E series, B series, D series. So each series has its own specialization. Let's say if I just choose maybe H series, it says that high performance computing VMs, and this is up to 2x performance boost for vector processing workloads. and this is large latest generation of E family sizes for E series. So third generation, second generation, different sizes. So it all depends on what kind of hardware they're procured and what kind of CPU power and memory and the storage you're gonna get it. Let's say if I choose here D series, that's a, or maybe let's go for a good one just to show you that so that you know that what I'm trying to talk here. High performance. So you see here it's going to actually have the CPU as 8 and RAM is 56 GB and 32 disks can be attached, so you get the IOPS, great IOPS, actually 32 into 500 IOPS. So here you see here, and this is going to cause something here. So based on the performance of your CPUs, let's say I want to go for horsepower of 60 CPUs and RAM as 223. So this is a huge one. Definitely it's going to cost me a lot of the cost. So it's close to, in my case, it's expensive, right? So I can choose based on these sizes and their pricing also listed here. So this is the sizing side where you can choose it. So in my case, I'm just choosing a simple one, which is gonna come up close to $70 to $80 per month. I'm just choosing this, and coming back to the user account. This is the user account that's going to be given you so that you are going to log in with that account. So I'm just giving here Paddy. What if you're trying to give as an administrator, it says that hey, this can't be used because it's a guessable. We are talking about the public cloud, so anybody can give a guess with administrator and or admin, all that are the guessable. So it should be a unique ID. So I'm just going to give here as Paddy, and the passwords also you can't use the well-known passwords. So you should be using some other password. So I'm going to use some random password here in this case, and once the password is accepted, it's going to ask me to, hey, you want to allow the inbound, because I'm going to actually connect from my home network or maybe from my office network to the public cloud. So we are talking about the public cloud altogether. So there's no VPN tunnel between your office or from your computer to Azure cloud. So definitely you need to allow port 3389 for doing the RDP. Otherwise you can also use the Azure Bastion service, which is again you don't need to enable this port. You can connect from the Azure portal. We have talked that in the upcoming lectures about the Azure Bastion service, but for now just the 3389 you want to allow. And also you can use if you have your on-premises license for this Windows Server 2019, you can actually reuse that, so that you're actually going to reduce the cost of 49% in terms of the license. This is called Azure Hybrid benefit. This benefit is available if you own on your paper. You can use that benefit of the license in Azure Cloud. So like by taking this radio button and clicking on confirm, it's going to allow you. So in my case I don't have example. So the next step is the other component. So this is a basic information what we have as of now supplied. Now the disk. So the disk by default it's going to give you around 127 GB, and you want to add some other space like you can create some of the LANs by creating here, and the size, all that you can have, so that this becomes as the additional drive for the virtual machine. And coming back to the networking, here within the networking it's going to actually provision in the backend a network interface. So this network interface is going to have a virtual network. As you know, within your office network also you will have your own VLANs, right, or your own subnetting. So similar thing we do call as the virtual network, and we have a great lessons which we talked in detail about the virtual networking or the virtual networks of VNet, VLAN, and their peering and side-to-side connectivity, and you can extend that VNet to your on-premises. All that was dedicatedly talked on VNets. But for now, if you are just try to create a virtual machine, you can simply click on create, or just leave these things. It will automatically create for you. So if you want to create your own VNet, you can click on create new. This is going to be the VNet name. So that's nothing but your subnet name kind of thing. and on top of it you have a subnet here. So you can give here subnet 1, this could be, and you might have another subnet you can give something like that, and there's subnetting ranges, all that. Click OK, and if at all your subnet is once you create it, how you want to connect to this machine, definitely with a public IP. So if you don't want that, you can say that I don't want, and if you want to have a public IP to connect from your virtual machine, from your machine to that virtual machine, you need to have the public IP. And is that public IP to be a static or should change dynamic? When I say static and dynamic difference, if your virtual machine restarted, so it might change the public IP. So you have to choose again one more time the correct IP and then connect it. If not, you can actually go and set it as a static. So it's going to charge you close to $1-2 per month. And in my case, I'm going to choose as a static. And coming back to the network security group, so this is the NSG. Again, the security firewalls, you can choose a basic or advanced. So if you choose the advanced, again you have other acceleratory features that are available. So in our case, we are actually going with the basic, and we did talked very extensively on network security group for allowing the ports, all that in the upcoming lectures in the networking section. But for now, yeah, we are actually allowing the network security group to allow public inbound port on 3389. And if at all you have a load balancer in between, like web app and web app 2 and a load balancer, then you can configure from here. But in our case, we don't have anything, and we did talk on this in the networking section. And coming back to the management, so in the management, all this any kind of issues will be reported to Azure Security Center for your virtual machine, for the monitoring and security concerns, all that. And also for the monitoring, you want to enable for the boot diagnostic. Let's say the virtual machine is not able to boot and might be throwing a base OD, so you don't know what's happening. So in that situation, you can enable the boot diagnostic and you can troubleshoot further. And the guest OS diagnostics also can be enabled. For that, it needs a storage account to be created. In our case, if we are trying to do auto shutdown of the virtual machine, you can enable this so that you can choose a different time zones like UTC or maybe UTC based time zones, any of them, and then based on that the machine gets automatically shut down. And by doing that, it's going to actually saves the cost since the virtual machine is not in a use state, right? So that really helps in terms of saving your cost. And for the starting, again, you can use something called Azure Automation Services, and you can trigger an automation task to automatically start the virtual machine, and this gets automatic shutdown, so that in between startup and shutdown is covered. So your virtual machines are only available during the user's activity. So that's good, and it's a great useful feature. Coming back to the notification, before you send shutdown, it's going to actually send a notice. It's going to turn off within 15 minutes or something like that. So you can configure your email if you don't want, you can turn off. And also you can configure this virtual machine directly right from here for the backup. So if you choose this button, it's going to take the complete backup of the virtual machine. Let's say maybe you want to restore for yesterday's date for so and so time, you can do that very well. And as a next step, it's going to be asked for me. I'm not going to choose the backup, and we have a dedicated lesson on the backup, and we did cover Azure Backup and ASR site-to-site recovery, all that features in a different lecture, but you can check out that section altogether because it has multiple lectures which was covered. And coming back to the advanced, it's going to actually install some kind of extensions. So when we talk about extension, let's say a specific software to be automatically installed, like your antivirus should be automatically installed on your virtual machine. So you can actually put some kind of extension if you have a subscription for those extensions. Let's say NVDA GPU driver extension, a PowerShell script to be run, or maybe Kaspersky antivirus. All that are different extensions that are available, and you can do that for the level of customization. But in our case, we don't have anything. But if at all you are actually looking for some kind of antivirus, all that, you can definitely go ahead and choose that specific extensions. Let's say Microsoft anti-malware, that to be part of this virtual machine. So you can do that, and if you have a subscription for that, it's going to add for your virtual machines automatically. And next thing is a tags. Tags are very important. Let's say this virtual machine is created for whom? Who's going to own this virtual machine? Say I can say here owner is in this case it could be Paddy. So I know that I'm gonna actually call or talk with this guy since he's the owner, and I can say this is for my billing. Billing is from my business unit for my R&D department, right? R&D for HRA or HR department maybe. So I know that by giving these when I pull up or when I do a quick changes, I know that this specific owner belongs this specific VM, or maybe this business unit is actually costing XYZ dollars for this specific business has to pay within internally for the costing. So tags are very, very important. That can be easily do even for the automation. Let's say I wanted to go for automation of shutdown of maybe I wanted to do the shutdown of around 7 p.m. maybe I can set here as this 7 p.m. So what would happen is if my automation account was configured, and it will actually look for my entire resources. If anywhere the tag is matching for the shutdown and the value with only whatever the time, so within that time it's going to actually shut down that virtual machine. So it's very, very useful in terms of the billing and for automation and to easily identify the resources, all that. And you can actually click on review and create that specific thing, and it's going to show you in the USD or your local currency and what's going to charge per hour basis, and you can view all these and click on create. That would actually create your virtual machine. And also you can also save this as a template. So this is called ARM template. Please do check out other lecture on templates specifically for your virtual machine. So you can actually, you don't need to recreate every time with all these configuration and tags. So simply you can use this template to redeploy as many times as, so that all you have to do is you have to enter some of the parameters for example the US username and the password, kind of some key parameters, and then you can actually deploy it. So this is the this can be downloaded, and also you can add to your library, and you can recall from there to deploy directly by using this ARM template. So we have a lecture and we have a complete talk on the ARM templates, how we can actually modify these ARM templates and the differences between ASM and ARM. So ASM is the old model, and that's called, also sometimes we refer as the classic, and this is the ARM is the latest Microsoft Azure world. ARM is the latest one, and most of the things, 99%, all the resources are moved already to ARM, and with this you can easily play even RBAC, all that great advantages you have with the ARM model, which we have talked about in a different lecture about ARM. But for now I will actually click on create, so that it's going to create a virtual machine for us. And if you see here, it's going to actually creating this virtual machine and different components, like an IP address is a different component, and a network card, and all that storage, all that has been created. And if I just go to my resource, which is a virtual machine, I can see that this virtual machine has now a public IP. And coming back to the networking, you have a port which was allowed 3389. This is called the NSG, so network security group, which will allow for the inbound connections rule, and also for the outbound. Everything is by default allowed, and here inbound itself blocked everything except the port 3389. And also you can check out the disk. So in this case we have just one disk, and if you want to add one more disk you can add it here. And coming to the size later point, let's see, now you have this size of maybe 2 core or 4 core with maybe 8 GB RAM. You want to extend, you can do it, but not all the virtual machines are supported. You cannot degrade the generations of the virtual machines. Let's say I want to go for a basic one, so I can always resize that. So you're not going to lose any data within that virtual machine, but instead you are going to actually reduce your CPU power and the RAM power, and definitely the max ops input output operations on a disk performance would reduce or can be increased based on the chosen size. So that's about the sizing side. And for connecting this virtual machine, you can always go and click on overview and try to connect from here. And if at all you have configured Azure Bastion as a service, you don't need to download the file, so you simply actually connect from here directly by creating this Azure Bastion service. And this is where the auto shutdown option, you want to change that, you can do always. And you want to enable the backup, you can do the backup enabling. And also for the DR ASR, you can configure ASR configurations here. Let's say currently it is into West US, you want to do for another space, maybe for target location I want to do it for maybe let's say Canada or Central, so I can do for the region as a Canada. So you can do all these source destinations, and this virtual machine will be available as a disaster recovery automatically with a few clicks. And for host updates, so if you are getting some kind of updates, you can always update so that the automation account would update any of the machines specific things. And coming back to the security, this is nothing but the Azure Security Center specific recommendation. If at all you have enabled this, so it actually recommends what kind of security should be taken for this virtual machine. Let's say you shouldn't be opening port 3389 because anybody can access if they know my IP address. So you can also access with this IP, but I'm going to delete later point. But if you try at this point of time, or maybe hacker is trying to do, he can actually try to connect with the 3389 if he knows the username and a password. So that can be again a case where you want to secure. So you can do that even for the virtual machines. If I just talking about the networking side, you do have the VNet here. Within the VNet, you have a different subnet to be created. Maybe currently you have a subnet 1 with a 10.0.3/24. Maybe you want with 10.1. Something like that. You can create your own subnet here. And we did talk about all these topics in the networking section, like creating a VPN tunnel from here. You can do that, or as your Bastion service specific subnet can be created. Even site-to-site VPN, all that options we have can be implemented directly from a VNet. So VNet is like your subnets or your VLANs in your physical environment. So similar thing, but it's a software based. And coming back to the other things within the virtual machine, so you can apply here again one more time different tags from here, and you can access can be granted for a specific person, or you can invite some other person to automatically co-admin. For example, I can say that add a specific role, let's say owner role, if I wanted to assign for a specific user, or maybe I wanted to type like X YZ at maybe a gmail.com person should be, I wanted to send him as a guest, but he wanted to have a full permission on my virtual machine. I can simply select this, and when I click on save, it's gonna grant a permission on this entire virtual machine where he can do full control as an owner. So these things comes into the role based access management for each of them. If you just click here, you are gonna learn more about when we use what is owner, what is actually maybe a contributor or reader, all that. So these things are fully configured and fully easily understandable in other lectures with respect to our back. And for now, I just canceled that, and I wanted to show you how to connect to this virtual machine. So we know now a little bit of options about the virtual machine, and now let's try to connect it. So to connect, if it's a virtual machine of a Windows server, then you're going to use the RDP. That means it's going to download a RDP file. And if it is SSH based on Linux and other, then you can go and download that SSH file. And if it's a Bastion, directly connects directly from your Azure portal. So in our case, it's the Windows server, so I'll just click on RDP and download. So what would happen is it's going to download a RDP file with this specific computer name. Inside this, the public IP and port number is hard coded. If I just open this, I created this options where it's gonna actually hard coded this IP, and also if I just try to connect, it's gonna ask me a user ID and password. So the user ID is the ID which I have given while I was creating this virtual machine. So I'll simply click on OK. So it's gonna ask me to connect. So if I just accept that SSL specific certificate, and it's gonna connect it. So this virtual machine is connected from my local machine, and this virtual machine is hosted in Azure network. So whatever the changes I do here, that's actually saved in the hard disk. And if I try to resize my virtual machine from a sizing, the hard disk only gets connected, because you see here what happens is everything is component based. So different components will be attached to a specific power of CPU and memory, and then it becomes as a virtual machine for you. So I'm going to use the same thing. So how do I know what other resources are available here? So before that, just maximize this, and you see here this is very similar to our virtual machine which is in our on-premises. So I can go ahead and install some of the roles, or maybe create a files. All that can be done. And the size of the VM is, again, you can see here, C drive is 117, that's 127 GB close to, and temp drive is a drive where it's gonna save just for the Azure purpose. So you don't need to save anything here. That's what it says, data loss warning, read me here. So if you save anything, it's going to be not deleted automatically. So don't save anything in the D drive. If you want to attach maybe a 1 TB, 2 TB, you go to Azure portal from the disks and create a attached disk from here, and give the premium or whatever the size, and simply attach it, so that it's going to create for you a virtual machine. And here host caching also can be enabled. That would actually read write performance will increase. Let's say I just give here as a D drive or something like that, extra drive. So if I just click on save, this specific drive with the 4 GB will be provisioned as a premium SSD for the specific virtual machine in a minute or so. So this is how you can add the disk if you want. And for the sizing, we talked about it. For the connectivity, we talked about it, and we talked about the networking components, we talked about it. Security, we talked about it. Extensions, we talked about the extensions when we try to create it. Let's say you want to install maybe Puppet agent, or maybe used maybe anti-malware specific PowerShell, DSC, all that can be configured here directly. And let's go to this drive. It's added now, the D drive or this hard disk LAN is added. So let's go to this machine and see. You don't see here, the reason being it has to be go to your manage and then rediscover that disk management. So I'll just scan my disk management for any changes. So as soon as I open it, will start prompting as, hey, you have a new disk called disk 2. So if I just initialize, it's going to show me here the disk size also information. So here it's a 4 GB. If you want to create a partition, you can do that. So it's a basic thing which you do it for any of the virtual machine. But I was just trying to explain to you here what other options you have and how best you can secure. And logs, if we talk about the logs, we did have a different lecture on the logs, but just wanted to explain here. You want to do not want to delete any changes or do not make any changes. All that can be allowed or configure directly here with the help of logs. So you can say that I don't want anybody to delete, and this should be only read only. So it's going to be log. You cannot even shut down, you cannot delete if you just choose as read only, all that. So logs are very useful in order to protect your components or your resources within your resource group, and you can apply these logs on a resource group also. Let's actually jump into the resource group and see. When we created this virtual machine, we have chosen a new resource group called demo VMs, right? If I just click on that, this has taken to the resource group, and if you look at here, if I just maximize to show you the resources, so here you have 7 different resources has been deployed, and all these components as attached, and it is showing you as a one virtual machine. Let's say you see here you have a virtual network, you have a disk, you have here virtual machine, this is a virtual machine, and this is your public IP address, and this is your security group which acts as a firewall, and this is your network interface, this is your actual operating system maybe, and you have created additional disk, so you have 2 disks. So whatever the things you are going to put it in your resource group, all that will come here, and you can apply, as I said, the logs also in order to secure. So these are the things which you need to learn about the virtual machine as a basic things. So let's say I want to go back to virtual machine, I can simply go from the resources also. That would take me to the virtual machine, and it gives a great view in terms of the monitoring capabilities. Also you can see the performance and all that, and also capabilities you can take for the security, disaster backup, patch management, logs can be based auto shutdown. You can also go for the best recommendation directly, and any of the tutorials if you want to learn more about things, you can actually go here. So these are the things which comes into the virtual machine. So this is a basic lecture which I wanted to cover. So think that in the upcoming lecture I'm not going to go in these things which I have already talked it. Instead I'm going to focus on a specific components. Let's say if I just talk about the networking, I'm going to talk only on networking. If I'm going to talk about the scale sets, I'm going to talk only on scale sets. Since this is a first video for virtual machines, it has took a lot of time to explain, but this is not the same case for other lectures, and I'll try my best to limit the time. Thank you for watching this. I hope this is really useful for you. I'll catch you in the next lecture.